According to Paul McCartney, the only way to have obtained the friendship of John Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono was to accomplish everything they said. In a recently published book, it is stated that Paul McCartney once expressed his frustration by stating that the only way to have obtained the friendship of John Lennon and Yoko Ono was to do everything they said. It has been stated that the Beatle, who is 81 years old, made these words when discussing their toxic implosion that occurred within the legendary band. This implosion resulted in John leaving the band in 1969, and in 1970, the fact that Sir Paul announced publicly that he was no longer working with the band made headlines. It was during this time that the late musician would go on to become involved in legal issues regarding the band's back catalogue, which led to conflict between him, his wife, and his old songwriting partner, Sir Paul. It has been alleged that McCartney has revealed the truth about the pair in the book by stating, "The way to get their friendship is to do everything the way they require it, and do anything else is how to not get their friendship. Paul is aware of the fact that if I completely and utterly lie down on the ground and just do everything like they say and laugh at all of their jokes, I need not to anticipate that my jokes will ever be laughed at. Friendship is possible between us if I am willing to do all of that." The author Stephen Gaines and Peter Brown, both members of the inner circle of the Beatles, are the authors of the book All You Need Is Love. Gaines was the one who conducted the initial interviews with the members of the band for the book The Love You Make, which was published in 1983. Interviews conducted in the early 1980s with former members of the Beatles, including Paul, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, as well as Yoko Johnson, John's widow, are included in this book. Fans of the band referred to it as the Muck You Rake, indicating that it was disliked by both the band and the fans. Tore the book apart and burned it in the fireplace, page by page, McCartney and his late wife Linda allegedly did after the book was published, as reported by the Sunday Times. Formally, the musician expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to get back again with John before the latter passed away. As McCartney thought on the murder of his friend in 1980, he stated that he would have struggled with the heartache if he had not reunited with him during that time. In an interview with Sean, the son of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, BBC Radio 2, he expressed his happiness at the opportunity to get back in touch with his father. Paul elaborated, "I always say to people that one of the great things for me was that after all the nonsense about the Beatles and all the arguing and the business, business difference is really that even after all of that, I'm so happy that I got it back together with your dad after all of that." Lennon remarked in an interview in 1971 that he could not envision working with Sir Paul again, despite the fact that the two had put their problems aside before Lennon's death. The feud between the two was widely chronicled by the journalists who were present at the time. After carrying a grudge against Yoko for a number of decades, the singer of Let It Be made the decision in 2013 to end their long-running quarrel in public. The musician made the observation that time, the great healer, was the factor that brought about the healing of the rift. If John loved her, there must be something more to it, I thought to myself. He is not a fool. During the interview, McCartney also mentioned that the late George Harrison, the guitarist for the Beatles, who passed away in 2001, was instrumental in assisting the Wings frontman in letting go of his resentment. During their conversation, McCartney shared that George would tell him, "You don't want stuff like that hanging around in your life." This conflict between McCartney and Ono has been going on for years, and it has even made its way into the media, where the two have been known to make scathing statements at each other. According to McCartney, the widow of John Lennon had broken an agreement when she agreed to allow his songs to be credited as McCartney-Lennon rather than Lennon-McCartney. McCartney told David Frost in a televised interview in 2012 that he did not blame the Japanese performance artist for the breakup of the Beatles in 1970. This is a belief that is held by many Beatles fans. This statement marked the beginning of the two individuals to begin building bridges with one another.